Chapter 25. The Yule Ball. A week later. It's finally time for the Yule Ball. I'm nervous and excited to say the least, but ready to have a glorious time. I silently sighed as I got out of the shower, drying myself off. It's getting closer and closer for the ball to start soon. I have to hurry and finish getting ready. I couldn't believe it was Christmas Eve already. I was really nervous about how everything would go tonight. A couple of girls I shared the room with were getting ready at the same time as me. Their dresses were really beautiful as I saw them lying on the beds, and they told me who they were going to go with, I guess to have a small conversation with me. Also, I do know who all my friends were going with. Ginny and Neville were surprisingly together. Harry said he and Ron were going with the Pafal twins. Hermione was happily going with Victor Crumb, since she told me and not Harry and Ron. Fred was going with Angelina, and lastly, I was going with George. Not to mention that after tonight, I'll be spending a bit of time with Severus. I smiled as I put my lace purple strapless dress on and went into the bathroom to do my hair and makeup. But before I could, Hermione suddenly found me. I heard the other girls muttering how beautiful that dress was as I turned to look and see how beautiful she looked. She smiled nervously, all dressed up, but her hair wasn't done yet. I smiled brightly at her. Hermione, that dress is absolutely beautiful. I love it. You look beautiful. She giggled. Thanks. Your dress is really beautiful on you. George did well. I chuckled. Yeah, he did. What are you doing here? I thought you were getting ready. I was. I still need to do my hair, but I wanted to check in on you and see if you needed any help. Plus, I wanted to see your dress. I looked at her sheepishly. I do need to do something with my hair. I want to put it up, but could use some help. She smiled as I took her offer, and she and I started to work together to help me do something nice with my hair. While she was fixing my hair, one of the girls looked at me. I think your dress is really pretty, Miranda. Thanks a lot. Yours is too. The girl kindly grinned at me and asked, So, who are you going to the ball with, if you don't mind me asking? I looked at my blonde-haired roommate and responded with a smile. George Weasley. She looked back at me shocked. You're lucky to be going with him. He seems like a nice, funny guy. I smiled again. Fred and George are both nice and funny brothers. She smiled back and we did our makeup together as I let Hermione help me curl my hair up nicely. Once Hermione was done, I looked at her happily. Thanks so much, Hermione, for helping me. This looks gorgeous. Of course, Miranda. It looks great. You look beautiful. I looked at myself in a nearby mirror, feeling like a princess. I felt beautiful. We smiled at each other and hugged as I asked, Will I see you sometime at the ball? She nodded her head to say yes as she left to finish getting ready, and I finished getting ready as well. I went down and out of the common room to find Harry and Ron in the hallway. I waved at Harry as he saw me and smiled softly, stopping as Ron stopped too. Wow, you look beautiful, Miranda, Harry admitted. You really do, Ron added. I giggled. Thanks, you guys. You both dressed well, too. Wait, Ron, is that what your mom sent you? Yeah, these dress robes were great on Tessie's. I couldn't help but lightly laugh, knowing how half uncomfortable Ron was. Have you seen Hermione? Ron asked. Yeah, she helped me with my hair earlier. Why? I responded in question. Do you know who she's going with? I looked at Ron and Harry. I do, but that's for me to know and you guys to figure out. It's not my place to say exactly, I'm sorry. Before either of them could respond, I saw George run up next to Harry. He looked up and down with his eyes as I giggled and he smiled at me. He stated, Wow, Miranda, you look really bloody beautiful. I'm glad the dress worked out for you. I lightly blushed, feeling my cheeks get red. Thanks, George, and I should be the one to thank you for picking it out. You look handsome yourself. He lightly laughed as he had his arm out for me. I entangled my arm in his and looked at Ron and Harry. I'll see you guys later at the ball. They softly smiled at me as George and I started to walk down to go meet up with Fred and Angelina at the ball. I started to hear music playing as Professor McGonagall saw me and smiled as I gave her a small smile back in return. Once we got inside and found Fred and Angelina, they said something similar to what George said. I'm probably going to be getting many compliments tonight, I thought. Does anyone know what exactly is supposed to be happening? I asked curiously. It's traditional for the tournament champions to be the first to dance before any of us, Fred responded. Oh wow, I hope Harry knows that. If not, then he does now, George added. Soon after that, everyone had started splitting up so the house winners can come through with their dates to be the first to dance. I didn't recognize the guy Fleur was with. Harry was with one of the tall twins. Hermione was with Victor as she glanced at me as we smiled at each other. And lastly, Cedric was with Cho, like I expected. I also looked towards my way and gave me a friendly smile as I did the same back. We all let them start the dance and then people slowly started to come in and dance along. I giggled as I smiled and watched Professor McGonagall take Professor McGonagall by the hand, and they joined in the dance on the dance floor. I smiled even more as I saw Hagrid going in with Madame Maxine, even Filch and his cat. Not too long afterward, Fran and Angelina then went in, not too far away from where I was standing with George on the sideline, actually. Then George walked around in front of me as he held his hand out and asked, "Would you like to dance, Miranda?" I took his hand and responded, "I would love to, George." We both smiled and went near where Dumbledore and McGonagall was still dancing sweetly. They each smiled at me. From the corner of my eye, I saw Severus watching me closely from afar, but once he saw I was staring, he smiled sweetly at me for a moment as I smiled back. It was unexpected, especially to be in this moment with George. But I love it, and I love how we have a sense of humorous but sweet friendship. He let me lean my head against him as I smiled and we continued dancing. After that was over, George and I danced through a few more songs, but first, it was a fun performance from the Weird Sisters. I wasn't too far from Hermione, as during the time we were all dancing, Victor even smiled sweetly at me. Soon after that, we both headed away from the crowd so he can get us some drinks. I was really thirsty and out of breath from all that, along with my body being hot. I then noticed that Hermione was sitting beside Harry and Ron. I realized that neither Harry nor Ron wanted to dance, and the twins were looking towards them wanting to, but that was until they both got grabbed by other guys. It's easy for me to see that something's going on between Ron and Hermione. Hermione then got up, irritated at Ron, and walked away from the two. I headed towards them and stood in front. "Hey guys." "Hey Miranda." Harry got up, looked at me kindly, and started to smile. "Miranda, you really do look beautiful." "Thanks again, Harry. I've been getting a few compliments tonight with this dress on." Maybe me coming up to him cheered him up a bit since him and Ron seemed a bit down. Harry and I started to walk around and continued to walk and talk some in the hallway, away from all the noise. "I should have asked you to the ball, Miranda. I'm sorry I didn't," Harry said shyly. "Aw, Harry, it's fine. I know how you are. Besides, I didn't think of it for a while, so I didn't even bother asking anyone unless George had planned to ask me for a while." "Where did you get that dress anyway, Miranda?" "I got it from George, actually, Harry." "George?" "Yeah, why? Are you surprised?" "I'm not surprised. I was wondering is all. I mean, it suits you with the color and all, and it's like I said, you look beautiful." I giggled and smiled softly. "I think so too." "Do you know what happened between Hermione and Ron? It seemed like things were tense from what I observed. I believe LeAnn doesn't approve of Hermione going with Victor, and she also said something about friendship with the tournament. Sounds like someone is secretly jealous." Harry laughed and said, "Yeah, well, we'll see what happens with that." "Hermione was right though, Harry, if she said something about friendship in the tournament, as I believe that is the whole point of this tournament since it's a competition between 3 schools." He didn't say anything as we looked at each other, but he knew deep down I was right. Harry and I talked for a couple more minutes privately before going to walk back to Ron. Just as I was about to start walking back to the dance, Cedric came up to me with a smile. "Hey, Miranda. Wow, you look stunning, by the way." "Hey, Cedric, thanks," I stated as I giggled and blushed noticeably. I looked down for a moment feeling shy. I saw Cedric kindly gleaming in a friendly way that was actually cute. "Aw, someone is blushing." Cedric teased and laughed as well. "Cedric, it's not funny. Stop it." "Well, it is to me because it's adorable." "You're adorable." He looked at me as I stuck my tongue at him and he playfully smiled and laughed. I couldn't help but to smile back and all as we stood and talked for a couple more minutes. He then took my hand and kissed it kindly as I smiled. Then George came back and found me as he handed me a drink. I smiled, thinking he must have been holding it, looking for me. I started to drink and as Cho dragged him by his arm and Cedric told me bye. George asked, "Seems like you and Cedric are getting along. Are you and Cedric friends?" Yeah, we're just starting to be, I guess. I mean, he's actually a nice guy and has been nice to me. He seems like he's nice. I just don't like that bloody slut Cho for what she did to you. I almost choked on my drink as I started to laugh, not expecting to hear that out of him. George! I playfully hit his arm as he put his arms around me comfortably. We both started to laugh again, even more. It's true. I don't know why she said or did those things, but she shouldn't have. You're too kind for such hatred. I looked up at him and smiled big as he smiled back. George and I started to walk around a little, taking a long break from the excitement. His right arm was along my waist as we walked along, talking and laughing. I turned a corner as I looked and saw Severus staring right back at me in the far distance, watching me. From just one glance, I could immediately tell that he was jealous, and I completely understood why. It's kind of scary sometimes how he does that. But at the same time, things have been decent between us since then. I'll be with him after the ball is over anyway. A week ago, I had detention for getting into a fight with Cho. I hate violence and fighting, but I had to stand up for myself. I mean, she taunted me and stuff for no other reason other than cause of Harry and me. Yet, it seemed like a one-way street because he crushed on her, but she was meh towards him. She and I are sort of cool with each other now, I hope. I don't want any more problems with her. I mean, detention was interesting though, and now Severus and I were kind of starting a secret relationship, and I've been seeing him off and on since then. I'm glad that Severus and Professor Dumbledore will let me keep that secret with my friends. Because they're my best friends, I can't keep things from them. Cedric? Maybe, but only if he and I grow to have a friendship, and I will be able to trust him. Other than that, I can't tell anyone for obvious reasons, and I haven't, and I won't. Anyway, I glanced at Severus as I smiled kindly, trying not to draw attention from anyone else. He gave me a small smile and a nod, maybe meaning that we will talk later or something. Maybe he's also secretly admiring me in his dress or admiring me in general. I honestly couldn't be happier than to be able to spend after Christmas with him. A couple minutes later, George and I walked back and heard another song that started to make people gather around again to dance. We saw and went beside Fred and Angelina, starting to dance along happily. I saw Hermione was nearby me with Victor again, so I smiled at her as we were back to back with each other. All of us seemed to have a good time except for Ron and Harry, who did not seem want to dance. Once that song was over, George went with Fred somewhere, which I didn't mind at all. I went over to where Harry and Ron were sitting to take a break. After a couple minutes, I tried to convince one of them to dance with me. Apparently, Ron didn't feel like dancing still, so I glanced at Harry as I got up and looked down at him while grabbing his hand, trying to get him to stand up. Please come dance with me, Harry. No way, Miranda, he responded, chuckling. Please, Harry, at least this once, dance with me. Please? As I did my sad puppy dog face on him. He laughed and gave in. Well, all right. I can't let my best friend down, after all, who looks beautiful. But only once, and never again. He smiled at me playfully as I giggled and blushed, which made him laugh again. At least he didn't tease me as much as Cedric did, but I've been getting that a lot tonight. Harry and I went to dancing to the song that came on. We were smiling and having fun, and I'm glad I coaxed Harry into dancing with me at least once. I then happened to look over at Professor Dumbledore as he saw me and smiled at Harry and me. Harry quickly looked over to notice that I caught his eye with Professor Dumbledore and saw he was smiling. So we both smiled back at him and continued to dance. After that was over, Harry and I noticed that Ron was missing, so we went to look for them. But for a few minutes, I had lost Harry and where he went until he found me, but he didn't say where he wandered off to. All he said was that he was partially outside and overheard something in regards to Severus and Igor Kolgorov. We started to hear their conversation and kept our distance as I could hear Hermione's rise a bit. You know the solution then, don't you? Go on. Next time there's a ball, pluck up the courage and ask me before somebody else does, and not as a last resort. I saw Harry start to walk up towards Ron and Hermione were. Ron stated, Well, that's completely off the point. Harry. They both looked at him and Hermione looks a bit angry. Where have you been? Never mind, off to bed, both of you. I watched Harry and Ron walk up the stairs and Harry looked back at me for a moment before Ron muttered something. Ron, you spoil everything. They both quickly walked off as I watched Hermione sit down on the steps and start to cry. After a minute, I walked up and sat down with her silently. I grabbed her hand as she leaned on it and leaned on my shoulder until she stopped crying. I knew she appreciated that I didn't say anything. We both looked really pretty, and I hated to see her so upset like this. I smiled and thought of what we used to do with each other if one of us got upset. I stood up and held out my hand, and she grabbed it. I started to do a certain dance we used to do as kids. Whenever one of us would get upset, we would do a certain dance, and it would cheer us up. I think she started to remember, as it's been quite some time since we last did it, and she smiled and danced with me. It seemed to make her feel a lot better, and she thanked me for cheering her up. After that, she told me she just wanted to get ready for bed, and I wanted to find George before I called it a night. She smiled. "Merry Christmas, Miranda. I love you." "Merry Christmas, Hermione, and I love you too." Once I found him, I hung out with him and Fred as George and I even slow danced for a song too. When the dance was drawing to a close, George and I walked in the hallway. We thanked each other for the nice evening and everything, including him getting me the dress and asking me to the ball. Since he knew where I was going, he hugged me goodbye as I went to meet Severus in his personal room.